Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. She watched him quietly, her eyes calm, kind, and full of something unspoken. Across the counter, the man stirred his coffee, lost in thoughts heavier than sugar. He didn't say a word, but she saw it. Everyone carries a secret dream, but only a few. Ever find someone who truly listens? She had that gift. And that gift ... would change a life forever. A quick flick of her fingers, and beneath the counter, a small notebook opens, worn edges, ink-stained pages, and she writes just one line, something only she would understand. Leticia arrived Sado como siempre, agitando as cigarras y espalhando o aroma a colheader de café recampasado palo ar de alma en aroma. Aqua cafeteria era mais que trabajo, era su santuario. Embexo de balcão, escondido entre sachos de acacar y lembranzas, vivia su pequeño caderno de confidencias. Nelly, ela anotava os sonhos dos clientes tidos ou não. Na era curiosidade, era cuidado. Ela escutava como corcó, como música suave embalando a manhã, as histórias desfilavam como pequenos filmes diante dela. O senhor de cabelos brancos, sempre como mesma esperança no olhar, falava de filha que não via Hanos. A adolescente do molten oversized murmurava letras de música, mas travava quando alguém a olhava. E a senhora das más tremulas? Voltava todos os dias para a mesma mesa onde era sim de cada atriz. Leticia os observava sem pressa. Cada café era uma página viva, into o caio untrue. Terno desalinhado, barba por fazer, o peso do mundo nas ombros. Elma o ojo o cardápio, so pediu café preto sem açúcar, e dixu uma moeda sobre o balcão como quem entrega a uma coisa que lhe resta. Leticia não fez perguntas, apenas observou. O jeito como él apertava os olhos, como se tudo lá fora gritasse, I just wanted to stop for a while, Eldis. It's also loud. Leticia sorriu com docura e, em silencio, anitu, dreams of quiet, dreams of peace. The days passed and Caio kept coming back. Always the same order, black coffee, no sugar, but his eyes grew less heavy with each visit. He began to speak, at first with hesitation, then with surprising honesty. He told Leticia that he once dreamed of opening a bookstore, a quiet place filled with stories and meaning. That life, as it often does, swept him in a different direction. He spoke of his childhood, of losing both parents before he could even finish high school. Survival became his priority, not passion. He'd gotten good at being responsible, dependable, but not happy. He had notebooks full of stories that no one had ever read. Leticia never interrupted. She simply listened like she always did. One day, he looked at her and said, I almost became a writer, you know. I had the words, but no one waiting to read them. There was no bitterness in his voice, just a quiet resignation. Leticia smiled, her heart quietly breaking for the dream he'd tucked away. That night, she reread every note she had written about him. Caio told her he was considering a job offer abroad. Not because he wanted it, but because it was expected. It's a good opportunity, he said, staring into his cup, but it's not mine. Leticia nodded, hiding the storm of thoughts forming behind her eyes. She had heard enough. It was time to do more than just listen. She remembered a used bookstore that had closed a few months ago, dusty, forgotten, but once loved. Leticia found the old owner, a retired man with a cane and a nostalgic smile. She told him about Caio, about his dream that was too afraid to live. The man didn't hesitate. He offered her every book left in the back room, no charge. With help from a few friends, Leticia cleared a storage room behind the cafe. It was small and smelled faintly of cinnamon and ink. She stacked the shelves with stories waiting to be discovered: adventure, poetry, philosophy, love. She placed a worn armchair by the window and a reading lamp just beside it. It felt like magic, quiet and alive. That morning, she poured Kaio's usual coffee and slipped a note beneath the saucer. She handed it to him with the same gentle smile as always. Kaio raised an eyebrow, confused but curious. He unfolded the note and read her handwriting, steady and warm. Dreams only die when we stop watering them. Open the back door. It's for you. He stared at the words for a long moment. Letitia turned away, pretending to wipe a counter that didn't need cleaning. Slowly, Kaio stood up, coffee in hand, and made his way to the back. The door creaked open and light spilled into the hidden space she had built for him. He didn't speak, couldn't. His silence said everything. He walked slowly among the books, fingers brushing over titles like long-lost friends. He sank into the armchair, overwhelmed, and let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. On the wall, a small wooden sign hung above the shelves. It read, "The Story Room for Dreamers Who Almost Forgot." Kaio closed his eyes. He remembered. Letitia stood by the door, watching from a distance, not wanting to intrude. Her heart was racing, but her face stayed calm. She had only ever wanted one thing: to make someone believe again. And now, in that tiny library lit by morning sun and second chances, a dream long buried had begun to bloom. She quietly returned to the front counter, smiling. Kaio stood at the threshold of the small room, the smell of old paper and fresh coffee wrapping around him like a familiar blanket. His eyes scanned the shelves, stopping on titles that once lived only in his memory. Each spine whispered fragments of the boy he used to be, the dreamer, the storyteller, the believer. And then he saw it, a book, worn edges. Inside, a note that broke something open in his chest. He opened the cover and there it was, in neat, thoughtful handwriting, for the boy who dreamed of writing. It's never too late. Well, the words hit him like a wave. All the years of silence, the doubt, the fear, they melted into tears he didn't hold back. His hands trembled. He pressed the book to his chest like a lost part of himself had just been returned. Letitia, from the other side of the cafe, quietly watched. He turned, slowly walking back through the hallway, past the espresso machine and the clinking cups. Letitia was there, polishing a mug with the kind of calm that only comes from someone who believes in quiet miracles. He stopped in front of her, voice soft but trembling. "Was it you?" he asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Her eyes sparkled, steady and kind. "No," she said gently. "It was your dream. I just gave it back to you." The words hung in the air, more powerful than anything he had ever read. They stared at each other, no need for explanations. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was full. Full of understanding. Full of everything that had been lost and finally found. Kaio looked down, smiling through the tears. That smile wasn't for Letitia, it was for himself. For the version of him that had waited patiently in the corners of his heart. For the boy with ink-stained fingers and a mind full of stories. He felt a shift inside, small but unstoppable. Something had been lit. Something that would never go out again. Letitia turned to serve another customer, giving him space, never needing a thank you. Her joy came not from being seen, but from seeing others come alive. Kaio sat at his usual table, the book still in his hands. But this time, the coffee wasn't just warm, it was hope, freshly brewed. And the cafe, once just a stop in his routine, had become the place where his story truly began. The cafe buzzed with its usual warmth, but now there was something new. A corner filled with letters, folded dreams, scribbled hopes. The dreamer's nook, people called it. Customers stopped to read notes, to leave behind fragments of their hearts. It became a quiet ritual: order coffee, share a dream. And Letitia, always behind the counter, smiled at each one. Kaio came in often now. Not with the same weight in his shoulders, but with a notebook in hand and that spark back in his eyes. He no longer drank his coffee in silence. He wrote poems, short stories, memories disguised as fiction. Every week, a new piece appeared in the city's newspaper, signed simply, CS. People started to notice. One morning, Letitia sat at her usual spot before opening hours, coffee in hand. The headline of that day's paper made her pause. It was one of Kaio's pieces. The title read, "The Barista Who Believed." She read it slowly, smiling softly as he described a woman who didn't wear a cape, but carried magic in her silence. It was her story told through his words. She folded the paper carefully and placed it behind the counter. Customers started trickling in, and the scent of cinnamon and espresso filled the air. A teenager handed Letitia a folded note for the Dreamer's Nook. An older man stopped to read a poem someone had left behind. The space had become more than a cafe. It was a sanctuary for stories, and Kaio, he didn't move abroad. He stayed, started a writing group for young authors, taught workshops in local schools. Some nights, he'd sit in the back of the cafe, watching Letitia's work. He never forgot what she did, what she gave, but more importantly, he remembered who he was now. The man who chose his dream because someone chose to listen. Letitia never needed recognition. Her joy was quiet, tucked between espresso shots and almond croissants. She believed in people the way some believe in stars, even when they can't be seen. And as stories blossomed all around her, she knew she had done her part, one dream at a time, one heartbeat heard, one silence transformed into song. Sometimes that's all it takes. A single act of listening, a single glance that says, "I see you." Dreams don't always need applause, they just need space. And maybe, just maybe, someone who believes. Because when a dream is heard with love, it blooms, and it can change everything. Don't wait. Listen to someone today. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Your words might inspire the next story. And hey, if you felt something real today, consider subscribing. We're building a community where stories heal, connect, and change lives. One video at a time.